Good.
Hi guys, we're here today with CEO and co-founder of Rock Daisy, Elvis Paramer, and Rock Daisy is a really cool system, and I'll let Elvis kind of take it from here. But Elvis, first of all, what's your background?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks, Adam, for taking the time. So my background comes from the world of data analytics and engineering. So throughout my career, I've worked for a variety of different companies, and to make it kind of simple, think of me as being the database guy for these companies. I'd be in charge of creating processes to take an organization's data, which is many times will be all over the place in multiple databases, and kind of creating a centralized space for that data so it can be used for reporting purposes and to make better business decisions. So that's kind of where my background comes from. A bit of database programming is probably the best way to put it. Yeah, I can kind of elaborate a bit further, but so throughout my career, I was pretty much the kind of the reports guy for a variety of companies, dealing directly with executives and the like. And most recently, about 6 years ago, I left the NFL, where at the NFL, my responsibility there, as well as my partner, Chris Tank, was we were responsible for all the data that would go in and outside of the NFL. And what I mean by that is data such as statistics information, contracts, ticketing, pretty much A to Z, whatever data went in and outside of the NFL league office pretty much went through our department. So we were responsible for what we thought at the time was the kind of hard part of data. And what I mean by that is we thought we'd be responsible for the collection of all that data, ensuring that the data is accurate and clean and kind of like in a centralized spot. Okay. And once we got it into a centralized spot, when it would come to deliver that information to end users, and when I say an end user, in the particular case of the NFL, an end user would have been coaches at individual teams, data analysts, executives, etc.
Could an end user be me watching something on TV?
Yes, an end user can be you. In our particular case, because working from the league level, the applications and reporting that our data was used for was mainly more on the team level, team and league companies. Although we did work with companies such as Elias Sports, where they kind of cleaned the data even more, and they would be responsible for kind of sending data over to the ESPNs of the world, if that makes sense. Right?
That makes sense.
So, on our end, when it came to data visualization or reporting, there are still today, so many data visualization kind of companies out there that kind of take your data warehouse, which is a term for things, and convert that into a way where end users could, build their own reports, charts, graphs, and all that type of stuff. And what we found was that a lot of those tools, while be it for us as tech guys, were super flexible to use. It was a bit too intimidating for other end users. It wasn't as, I guess, user friendly is the best way to put it. And we found that a lot of the end users that we were working with were like, hey, we just kind of like really need a simple reporting platform. These data visualization tools that you guys are using are a bit too complex for us. Can you just send me a PDF of that dashboard that you guys created? And at that point, that's when we knew that there's a problem with data delivery and data visualization. Like, while it sounds like job security for us, at the end of the day, you want people that need this information to be able to manipulate data and for that to be somewhat user-friendly. And if you don't have a user-friendly tool, like if you as an end user are too afraid to modify a filter, well, there's got to be a problem. Right now, data is not in your at the hands of your fingertips, and that's when we open up Rock Daisy. I guess a cliche saying that we like to use for Rock Daisy is where data visualization for the iPhone generation, if you will. It's that sleek and super simple for end users to use and navigate.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So you created some sort of way to visualize data that allows end users to use it like really easily, like you said. Like, and by the way, filter is like something. Let's say you have a big dashboard or a lot of pictures, and you just want to look at the forwards and not the guards and the centers, right? Like on a team, you're talking that's like a filter.
That's
You would
like
filter the data
like
down.
a season would be a filter, or show me only game data, or only show me data where what are the stats on third down and in the red zone. So down and distance, that's filters.
Gotcha. So gaining insights on data because filters and other things were hard for the user to manipulate was something that you saw. So you developed a way to allow the end user to do that in a simple way. Is what
Yes,
you're saying.
exactly.
Perfect. And so now where are you? How has that evolved, I guess?
Sure. So we started off as a data visualization platform. So what I want to be really specific about here is that I never said sports data visualization, right? Because to us, data is data. Couldn't care less if it's sports data, marketing, advertising, or finance data for that matter. But what we found is just in business in general, like you can't be too abstract or agnostic for that matter. You kind of want to start off with one vertical at a time. So the vertical that we all know and love, and happens to be in our background, is sports. So we started targeting sports teams and becoming more of a sports focused data visualization platform. And we're currently working with many teams in all the major leagues, and they're using our data visualization platform for a variety of different use cases. Some teams are using it for contract analysis, for example, to help negotiate with sports agents of the athletes. Others are using it for kind of player statistics. Others are using it for sports science, right? And then we have a few teams that are using it for all of the above. We have teams using our platform as kind of like a one-stop shop for all their reporting. Now, one of the things I mentioned was sports science, right? So for the teams that we've worked with in the past that use our platform for sports science, and they love our platform, our data visualization layer, et cetera, they kept on mentioning to us, if you guys can create the ability for us to input data and collect data in the same user-friendly fashion as you've created the data visualization platform, you guys can be a full-blown AMS. And at that point, I'm like, well, what's an AMS? And they mentioned it's an athlete management system. It's pretty much data visualization plus data collection, kind of all in one spot, right? Versus having multiple places to go to. One place to collect data, another place to visualize data, right? Just have one user-friendly spot. So that's kind of what we've done in the past, I'd say 12 to 18 months, is we focused more on adding a module to our data visualization platform that enables anybody to actually start collecting data on athletes and whatever type of proprietary data they want. We've taken it to the next level where, and as we'll get into perhaps a demo, where you can not only collect your own type of data, but we also integrate with perhaps other equipment providers that you as a team may have. And what I mean by that could be, many teams, have like GPS wearable devices where they have GPS systems on athletes, and those GPS systems collect their own source of data. So you don't want to log into 20 different spots, right, to see or do reporting. So we have a one-stop shop where we'll take data from all over the place, plus whatever data you come up with, have it in one centralized spot that you can view data, create dashboards, and the like. So we've gone more into the sports athlete management system module recently. That's kind of where we're at.
Awesome. So that makes sense to me. So before, a lot of teams, they're collecting information, their own information on athletes, but they're also getting information from other sources, like from a league, like they're getting game stats from a league. And what you would do is you would help them visualize all the information that they were collecting, but they couldn't actually, they had to do that separately. So they would have to put all that in, they'd have to organize putting that information into somewhere, and then it would be visualized by you. Whereas now you can log into a visualization and also input information into the same place, and it's all housed together.
Exactly. It's all warehoused together, right? So you don't have to go to the bunch of different spots. Exactly. You nailed it.
Okay. All right, cool. Do you want to show us some of the stuff that we can do in this
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, sure, awesome, for sure. So there's kind of a couple different components to our platform. So as I mentioned, there's a data collection layer, right, which is fairly new, and there's the core, which is the data visualization piece. Now, I happen to be logged in right now to the system as an administrator, so I pretty much see like a bunch of stuff. But one of the big things about our platform is that we don't want it to be as intimidating, depending on the user who's logged in. So keep in mind, if a coach logs in, they would probably see a different kind of layout, a more less intimidating layout, if that makes sense, more about favorites and stuff like that. So that's really customizable with our platform. But let's first start off with simple stuff, like let's start collecting data on athletes, right? So to the left-hand side, this is kind of our control panel, if you will. And I'm gonna click on data management. And from a data management point of view, right, here's a couple of things kind of out of the box we built. But the beautiful thing about this is you can create your own forms and questionnaires that you want to collect. And I'll just show you a few of them as an example. Let's first start off with something as simple as weigh-in, right? I'll click into weigh-in. And now that I'm here, here's kind of like all my athletes, right? And the way teams use this, for example, this weigh-in form is they may have like an iPad next to the weigh-in scale, and we connect with many Bluetooth systems. So for example, as an athlete, I'll go on the scale, I'll click my name, let's say I'm this number 7 guy, right? And automatically my scale kind of, my weight gets entered in here. Really basic stuff, nothing special or fancy there, right? So you have that type of information. And let's kind of now go back to daily tracking. Yeah, go ahead.
So Judge, just to these forms, right? Like, so the other way that I would collect this is like on a spreadsheet, pen and paper, right? Like I could have an athlete stand on a scale, I would watch them, or they would just look at the number on the scale, write that number on a piece of paper. But this is a way to essentially they can just stand on the scale, or if you aren't connected to the scale with the system for whatever reason, they can input it into the computer, and then it goes right into a visualization with their other information. Whereas if I were recording it on pen and paper or something, I would then have to type that into a computer somewhere and put it with the other data and then upload it, into some sort of visualization for me to look at, let's say their body weight today versus their body weight yesterday.
Exactly. And actually, you bring up a really good point, because perhaps I should have brought this up earlier. So prior to not so much us, but just athlete management systems and data visualization companies in general, the way teams and organizations would have been doing things is they're still collecting a lot of information, but they'd be doing things on paper, kind of like you mentioned, in Excel, and then the biggest issue there is, well, obviously the manual entry in Excel and stuff like that is probably not cool, right? But also, whenever somebody would want to correlate information, like I want to correlate my weight information, with perhaps statistic information or body fat or other things. So now what teams would do is like they'd be all over the place, right? Oh, let me open up that Excel file, and I think that data is stored on that piece of paper, and that is in another Excel file with, on another guy's machine, etc. And the whole purpose here is just to have a one-stop shop, everything all in one place.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yep. So that's a basic form, but then let's go into something more interesting, something like wellness, right? Which is a big thing, nowadays, So before I get into this wellness particular form, right? A couple of things I want to mention. There's multiple ways to actually collect data, so that we provide. So one route is more of a kind of think of it as a sports science kind of coordinator route, and that means more managed by a strength and conditioning staff at a team. So, for example, perhaps if I want my athletes to fill out a questionnaire, we have certain teams that they'll walk around with an iPad with this site on, and I'll go to I see number 5. I'm like, hey, number 5, I need you to fill this in, right? So I'll click on his name, etc., and then we'll go through this form in a second, right? The other route, though, may be more like, hey, I want to actually send out questionnaires to my athletes because I want them to do this self-service, right? So we have a whole scheduling system behind our platform where you can say, hey, I want this, wellness form to be sent out to these 20 guys on every day at 8 a.m. in the morning with a reminder at 9 a.m., right? And the beautiful thing about our platform is we're a responsive platform. So we work on any device. So the same pretty form that we're showing right now for this meeting on a desktop looks great on a mobile device as well. So that they could just log in. Actually, even more so, they don't even have to log in. Like, they don't even have to worry about using a password. We're all secure with like this special type of link we send them. So there's multiple ways of collecting data, self-service and kind of managed by a manager from a team point of view. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it's really cool just because I know, like, with my experiences with athletes, trying to sometimes like find them and have them fill out something on a piece of paper, or me enter something in Excel like next to them is sometimes hard. So making it a nice experience for the athlete, I guess, like if you're sending them a questionnaire onto their mobile phone and they can just open it up and fill it out on their own, that may help with compliance. And if you run into issues or it's really ugly, they may not want to take a part in that. So
Yeah,
that's really cool.
for sure. So I'm actually going to elaborate a bit further after I get through some of this on the athlete feedback portion of things, because you mentioned something so crucial that you as a sports scientist may want to collect so much information on your athletes, but you want to make it I guess an enjoyable experience for them too, right? It's hard to collect data in general. So we'll talk about some of the things that we've been doing on our end to give some feedback, if you will, to the athletes to ensure that they put in accurate data. But here's a really super simple example of, basic kind of questionnaire, stress level, how'd you sleep last night, 1 to 5, what's your energy level like, and maybe indicate some areas of painfulness or soreness of your body. So you choose a body part and say what level of pain you have. Now, I won't necessarily continue on with this because one of the big things I want to show here is this is an out-of-box questionnaire, but you can customize the heck out of this, right? I mean, so you could add your own questions, you can create your own forms as a sports science kind of admin, right? The role we'd like to call this is more of the athlete management system administrator, right? So you don't have to deal with any of our questionnaires. One of the big things about our platform is it's completely customizable to your needs, because maybe you hate these questions and you want there to be different questions, etc. So just kind of like as an example, right? I didn't really want to get too much into the behind the scenes weeds of things, but let's say you and I wanted to add a question to this wellness questionnaire. Okay? Because I'm an admin, I'm going to right click here and I'm going to modify this form. Okay? And I'm kind of in our kind of behind the hood type of stuff where.
Yeah, so this is like you're an admin doing this, but if you're a coach or an athlete, like you have no idea what's going on here, right? Like they don't see any of this stuff. They just,
and you don't want them to either. This is just
yeah.
more of like the kind of think of it as the initial onboarding or setup process that we have with our customers, right? Where we're like, hey guys, set up all your questionnaires, make it fancy and your forms and all that type of stuff, and then coaches and athletes, they won't see any of this type of stuff, right? It's all behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
But just to even show you how, our goal is to not only make the end user experience super user friendly for your coaches and your athletes, but also for you as the administrator. Like, I want you to be able to do things pretty quickly too, and not really have to have be a hardcore programmer, if you will, to do things, right? So here's something as simple as like, hey, if I want to add a new question, I'll say, how are you, as an example. We have a bunch of different question types, right? And I kind of won't go through each one of them, but a drop-down question, a number question, a slider, all that type of stuff. But let's keep it simple. Let's say I want to customize the answers for this question, right? And my options are going to be, let's say, good, and let's say bad as well, right? And I'll just save that, okay? So now that kind of question has been added, and you see it's been added all the way to the end. But heck, let's say I want to customize this even further, where I want this to be the first question that they see. Okay, cool. Now let's go back and to refresh this wellness page, and just to show you what we just did was we now added another question. So if I click on this guy, the first question is hey, how are you, good or bad? And we keep on going, right? So it's that simple to add questions. Yeah. So not only can you add questions and forms and that type of stuff, but you can really control the end user experience too. So what I mean by that, as an example, is you see here how it's kind of like one question at a time, like, okay, stress level next, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
You, as the AMS manager, may be like, well, that's kind of annoying. I don't want it to be one question at a time. I just want the athlete to see all questions through this form. So we have, if you notice here in our kind of refine icon, you can change the layout, okay, of this questionnaire. So I'm going to switch it to be some called a one-page wizard, right? Which really is our name of saying, hey, all your questions on one page. So now if I click and take I, here's all the questions. And have it all expanded, etc.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah, so you pretty much control. Our goal is for you to control everything about this, right? The other cool thing is, I mentioned earlier how, hey, this is kind of like an iPad or desktop-ish type of screen here, but if you want to see how it looks like on a mobile device, right? Let me just put on my developer hat for a minute here, and just to render this as though I'm on my mobile device. It's pretty user-friendly on mobile too, so I click and take out, and kind of here's the questions there as well.
Oh,
Although,
no, yeah, that looks awesome.
yeah, it's pretty cool. And you can control even things as, it's funny, like we went to the next level where you see where it says good and bad here. Let me kind of just close out for a second, just to show you how the in the weeds kind of level of customization, if you will, that you as an admin could do. Would be something to the effect, let me modify this form, and let's say, I don't know, I want the background color of good to be green, as an example, right? So if I go to questions here, right, to my how are you question, maybe I want to modify good to say I want the text to be white and maybe the background to be green, right, as an example here, and I'll save that.
Oh.
So you have complete aesthetic control here. So if I go to wellness, you might be super happy with whatever the,
Yeah.
maybe I didn't save it there, but pretty
Yeah, I
much
saw.
all that type of stuff, right? I probably
Um,
forgot to say it, but like
but
literally down to the aesthetics, because we find, certain teams are kind of totally cool with a black and white type of scenario. Other teams have more kind of creative direction design that they want to fool with. So we want to give you complete control of all
yeah.
that.
So what happens, like, so let's say that athletes, they step on the scale. Like, can you go back to that weigh-in one? Just because I have a question kind of about, not about it specifically, but let's say that you're like a team and like athletes step on the scale and the Bluetooth connects and, the weight goes in and then they tap on the iPad, they tap submit because the weight automatically fills in. And then one day, the iPad isn't working and you don't feel comfortable with guys entering in their own weights there. Like, how can I as an admin, like, maybe it seems kind of annoying to click into each guy and go into their weights. Is there like a different way that I can see all the athletes at once? Like
Oh
I can
yeah,
enter in.
completely with you. Yeah. So for example, I'll actually just go just to show you kind of a different theme, if you will. I'll go to a weigh-in here, right? Okay. So this is going to be kind of annoying to click into a guy and put in the weight, for
Yeah.
example, right? So what you have the ability of is in that same area where you can control the layout, you can also say, you know what, I don't even want to see the headshots or anything to that effect. I want it to be as simple as, say, an Excel grid, right? So it could be as simple as this. So now you can
Oh, nice.
put in the numbers
Okay.
right here, right?
Yeah, that makes me, I mean, as a sports scientist or I guess as an admin, that makes me more comfortable because that's what I'm used to. And if I'm entering in a lot of data at once, that makes it really easy. So that's really
Exactly.
cool.
And
Okay.
that's like, okay, kind of, you bring up another point here is that, I've been showing you things more in a kind of questionnaire format where you see, kind of the guy's headshot and click into guy, et cetera. But we consider things just to be forms in general. So maybe you want a form on like, hey, I don't know, bench press or some kind of effect where you don't want to be clicking into a guy. You can control your own experience of data collection. And that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
And just kind of like, just an example, now that I'm already at this kind of other site, if you will, like here's other, perhaps forms that you want to put in, I don't know, let's say, for
And
example,
so why are there so many forms on this one? Like what?
oh, yeah, good point, right? So if I go back for a second, I'll slow down here. So you're right. So when I click on data management here on this site, there's a bunch of forms, forms, right? Yet data management on this other site, there's only 3 or 4, right?
Yeah.
The reason is because you, as the customer, you can create your own forms, right? So this customer, as an example, they wanted much more forms to collect this type of information, versus another customer
Gotcha.
just cared about, oh, I just care about RP and wellness. You know, I don't want to overwhelm anybody. So, and that's the beauty here, because I could click on new, and I don't want to go through the whole thing, but in short, like I have a process where I create a new form. And to elaborate further, it's not so much that we give you forms that you can customize. It's like, no, we actually give you a blank canvas. Create your own forms and your own questions, and decide the layout of each one of them.
Okay. And so, like, I noticed, so there are a lot of forms on this site, but what if, so if I don't want coaches or athletes to see any of those forms, I can just say, don't show these to them, only show them to me?
That's correct. Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, how, hey, I happen to be logged in as an admin, so I see everything, but things don't have to be as intimidating depending on the user. So each user would perhaps see a different homepage, and there's a whole behind the scenes kind of permissioning system to things as well, right?
Okay.
I can say certain coaches, maybe I do want them to see forms, but athletes definitely not. And you can even control things down to the level of, perhaps you have, 2 coaches, as an example, they may have access to the same form, but coach 1 is like an offensive coordinator or some to that effect, right? And maybe he should only be able to see his guys. So we have multiple levels of security that you can, custom behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah, that's wild. That's cool. Okay.
So if it makes sense, I could go into
Yeah.
some other types of forms, right? But we've been so far talking about kind of forms on like, hey, I want to put in official information on an athlete on a date, but maybe you want a more kind of subjective type of information, right? Or objective, or depending on how you look at it, where you want the individual user who's logged in, and let's say, for example, a coach. I'm Coach Elvis, and I'm logged in, and I want to say, on this date for this player, I gave him a grade of X. Yet when Adam logs in, he gives a different, grade on an athlete. So those are kind of player user specific forms. So an example would be something like coach game rating for player. So I happen to be logged in as Elvis, so I could click into this guy and maybe I'll give him my grade, B or B plus, and put in some notes, right? But when you as Adam log in, right, you'll see the same exact form, except you'll put in your own grade. So this way we could see maybe the guy's average grade by all the coaches. So that so far is our data collection side of things. I always say that it's the boring side of things, but not really. The reason why I say it's boring is because our core is like, now that you have all this data, that's wonderful. Well, what are you going to do with this? And that's kind of where the core of Rock Daisy comes in, which is the data visualization part of Rock Daisy. So perhaps if it makes sense with you, Adam, you can go straight into that type of stuff.
Yeah, sure. I want to see how I can make some insights from this stuff.
Exactly. So yeah, so you got all this pretty data. That's wonderful. What are you going to do with it? Right? Now that's a question. So now that's where we're going to be focusing more on this kind of dashboard section here. And you'll see I have this dashboard section here and this favorites right here too. Because you'll definitely see right now in a second how super simple it is for an end user to create a dashboard. And because it's that simple, they may be creating like a bunch of dashboards. So that's why we kind of have like a favorite section here. But let's create a brand new dashboard together. Okay. So the first thing I would do is click on this dashboards. And now I have a list of all kind of what we like to call dashboard categories: team, player, sessions, etc.
And those are things that the admin or an administrator, they set up those categories to make things easier for this person, whoever's logged in.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah.
So all these categories are customizable. So pretty much just about everything you see here is all, I mean, this is purely a demo site, but this could be, you may want to call this group, or you only have 5 or 10 different categories. You can do all that type of stuff.
Okay.
You're pretty much like customizing your own website, if you think of it that way.
Yeah, makes sense.
We kind of also like to give an analogy. It's like, a Wix or whatever for data visualization, right? You're creating a whole app on your own, right? So let's start off with something simple like player. So I go into my player category, and you'll notice here a bunch of thumbnails, right? So these thumbnails are all dashboards that either I, as Elvis, have built for myself, right? So I can quickly go back and reference them, or perhaps they were shared to me by other people through the organization, right? So we don't necessarily see coaches even building dashboards. Like we'll see somebody else building a dashboard and just sharing with them via like a thumbnail that they can just click on.
Okay. I could see how this could quickly, like if I had a lot of different things I wanted to look at, I could have a lot of these things.
Yep.
And I see at the top there, there's some stuff. It looks like, I don't know what it is, but it looks, so if I just wanted to see my own, you could click on my saved only. And
Exactly.
so if I don't care about what other people shared with me, or maybe I only care about that, I can just see that stuff. Okay.
That's correct. But even better, like, sometimes that's kind of why, because even then it still might be a bit like overwhelming. If we have customers that have like hundreds of saved dashboards and it's a bit too much, right? So what we'll recommend you guys do is like, you see how you have kind of that favorites icon. So like, for example, I'll just add that to my favorites and that one, right? And now let me just go back to the home page for a second of where I just usually go to log in. And that's all right here. I want
Oh,
to leave notes here too, where I added it way too much too, but I could just remove a few things here. So this way I can just go straight into from here, and even this part right here too, which it might have looked a bit overwhelming, but that is also something that you can say, hey, I want my homepage dashboard to be one of my saved dashboards. So even that level of customization, like
gotcha.
what we're trying to do is avoid too many clicks, for a person. I was just trying to show you more of the kind of, hey, the full experience, and then we'll get into like, oh, how do I make this even easier for my coaches?
Gotcha. I have kind of a random question just because this is the way that I think. Like when I log into something where all my information is, the first thing that I kind of think about is like, what's the schedule? Like what's the schedule for today, or what's the schedule just in general? Is that something that could be like a home page? Like what a
Yeah,
schedule is?
we do. So that's why we actually have a button called schedule right here. And I don't think there's anything here for our demo, but in short, with this schedule, right, we figure a schedule is more of a, it could be your homepage too, right? We just have it as a separate button because maybe you want it to be like more of a, not as intimidating of a page. But what our schedule is, as I kind of alluded to earlier, how you can send out forms to athletes, right? Here's where I can kind of double click and say, hey, I want to create a new event, right? Form one, and this is going to be an athlete management system form event, and I want to send out this, weigh-in form or this wellness form to these individual athletes, etc.
Whoa, this is kind of like Google Calendars as it is
Yeah,
today. I see repeat. So you can change the repeat and make it like just send out every day at a certain time, or
exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of like a product within a product, if that makes sense. So we were talking about data visualization, we were talking about data collection, right? But now it's sort of this gets more into kind of a data process, if you will, right? Because our goal is not to only make it easy for your end users to view data and for you as the admin to, create the type of forms that you want to collect. But on top of that, we want to make it, we want to make your job easier, right? We don't want you to kind of like call the athletes or whatever every single day and like remind them, like, let's have this all done in the system. If you know that every, say, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you want to have a questionnaire sent out to them, well, just send it up as a one-time deal. We'll do like a repeat. And we took the same concept as a calendar from Google, except we incorporated more. Well, it's a calendar in association to, SMS and text messages and stuff like that, using our athlete management system forms. So you can kind of send like an email, you can send a text message to, and all that kind of stuff. And you can pick and choose the times that you send it.
cool. All right, I get it.
Awesome. Yep. Go ahead.
Yep. Sorry, I think I threw you off track there.
No, no worries.
I get random questions.
Yeah. Oh, so I'll kind of get straight into kind of the dashboard side of things. So we were here, right? We were showing off kind of like a bunch of thumbnails, right? Let's actually go build a dashboard together. Like, yeah, in theory, you could kind of click into one of these and you'll see things, but I want to show you more advanced stuff on how super simple it is for you to even build something. So I'm going to click on this new button here. And here's a bunch of templates that we give you. to build from. I won't get too much details here, but let's just do something as simple as a player comparison. So I want to compare athletes. Okay. So from an end user point of view, the only items you need to know in order to kind of operate this platform are just these handful of buttons here to the left. So we're in a comparison experience. So the first thing I want to do is I want to compare athletes, right? And all these kind of images and stuff like that, that's all customizable. But let's say I want to compare Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, and Drew Brees. So I choose the athletes I want to compare. And then the next thing I do is click on this reports button. And here's where I usually like to pause. So this reports button here is a bunch of reports that the administrator created for you as the end user. So we have a whole kind of toolkit behind the scenes that we allow the athlete management system admin to build reports and kind of throw these reports into libraries, right? So an end user can just pick and choose a report. So an example here, right, would be, here's a bunch of reports that the admin allowed me to pick and choose from. But you know what? I want to build my own dashboard. The only reports I care about is, say, target breakdown, maybe pass yards per game, and maybe kind of like a bird's eye view of passing stats. So I pick and choose the reports I care about. I'm going to close out. And now, just to show some bells and whistles, I can kind of design my own layout, kind of move things around, and now I'm kind of done, I'll leave it alone. And I'm pretty much done at this point. I'm going to save this as, let's say, Adam Demo 123. Now that I have it saved, everything about this dashboard is saved, including the reports. So we call each of these kind of boxes a report for us. The layout of those reports, the three guys I selected, heck, even additional filters such as season. I can look at all this stuff and just say I still want to keep my 3 guys in these 5 reports, but just modify the filter that I was referring to earlier. It's that simple to modify filters, right? And at this point, that thumbnail, if I go back to our navigation kind of icon here, and I'll go back to player, that Adam123 is right there. Right? So now I never have to create that dashboard ever again. Like, that's it. So I'll go back into this and do it fresh.
Well, what if I made a mistake? What if maybe I wanted to compare a different player? I want another player to compare to.
Yeah, sure. So it's all dynamic. So at this point, you made a mistake. Let's say you added Drew Brees, but you don't want Drew Brees. I'm gonna just close out. Now he's gone, and any reports associated to him is gone. I want to add another guy. Let me click on add, right? And let's just add, Andrew Luck. Another chart was created here. I'll move it around, etc. And I can resave this, or heck, I could save it as something new. Right?
Gotcha.
Make multiple.
Okay.
Now, while more than just a pretty face, we enable the end user to even interact with this data. And here's what I mean by that. I think it's super important not just to show a pretty dashboard to somebody, but give them the ability to kind of tell their own story around the data. So an example of what I mean by that is if we look at here at Aaron Rodgers, right? Here's the top 3 targets that he had in the 2016 regular season. Well, you'll notice 41% of the time, there's been some other athletes, other players he's been targeting, right? Well, I want to see who these guys are. So I can just click into this slice and, well, now I see a grid of who those other athletes were and maybe some stats about them.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm done with that, I just click out, it's not intimidating, etc. Now, behind the scenes, we give the administrator the ability to control their data storytelling experience. And what I mean by that is just because just now I clicked on the slice and it went to a grid, maybe you're like, well, I wanted to go from a slice to a bar chart, or heck, I want to go from a slice to a whole other dashboard too. So you kind of have that control as an admin, right? We want you as, and I keep on going back to that admin word, to totally control the whole experience your coaches and your athletes go through.
Oh, okay. So like there's no limit. Like if I had a bar chart that was my average for a week and I clicked into that bar, I could have like a line chart for every day. And then if I click on, a part of the line, I can get to my sessions, I guess, like a grid
Yeah.
of the
You
sessions in
can,
that day? Like, is there a limit to?
there's no limit, like it's multi-level, right? I wouldn't necessarily recommend, having 20 different levels,
Yeah.
but yeah, and that's the beauty here. It's kind of like a blank canvas. You have complete control. And I think in a few minutes, I'll kind of go through a different demo that's more focused on sports performance data. Because as you can tell here, I'm showing stats data, but as I mentioned earlier, couldn't care less the type of data, whether it's stats, marketing, whatever. Just stats
Okay.
sometimes more sexy, if you will, to show, right?
Makes sense.
But just to kind of show you some even more of the
Yep.
features that we have behind the scenes, right? Is okay, you got this awesome dashboard. Yep, I can interact with it. Well, I want to see this dashboard on my mobile device because I'm not logging into my laptop or my desktop all the time. I want to see it on my mobile device. Well, this dashboard that you and I just built, well, it's already mobile friendly. And just to show you the same exact way how I've shown you the forms that are mobile friendly, so are, and even more so, our dashboards too. So this is an example if I'm on my iPhone or mobile device. It's kind of right here. Like I want to add more guys, I could add more guys here too.
Oh, cool.
Kind of that simple. So everything is kind of friendly for each device. Now from here, right? A couple more bells and whistles, saving and all that type of stuff. But also, I could send this out to others. Perhaps I want to email this dashboard to somebody, and the way it would be emailed is via like a PDF and a direct link back to the dashboard. Maybe I want to export the PDF. Heck, maybe I want to share it. Like maybe I am the builder of the dashboards, right? Like I'm not the admin, but I'm kind of like the builder, and I want to share it with my coaches. So you can share this awesome layout dashboard that you've created with your coaches here. So when they log in, they'll see that thumbnail, on their homepage, right?
Okay.
I could subscribe to this because maybe at this point, like I'm like, yeah, it's really fancy, it's nice, but I just want this email to me every single day at 8 a.m. So the same way how I was referring to how you can set schedules for like forms and stuff like that to be sent to athletes. Well, you could do the same thing when it comes to dashboards for yourself or for others too. And you'll just get an email every day at 9 a.m. or whatever days you select, whatever.
Awesome. So you can schedule data entry, I guess, like if you're sending it to someone else to enter in information, you could also schedule data visualization. So you can just get emails or text with notifications of things that are going on that you need to worry about.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have a question on this though. One thing that you said was a little bit concerning to me, at least as a sports scientist, is you said that like the admin creates all these reports and then the end user goes in and adds the reports. And I don't know if I have a coach that would want to add the reports themselves. So like, could I can add my own reports or I can't. I just
Right.
want to make
Yeah.
sure I'm clear.
You brought up a really good point. Now we have the capability of an end user having the power to add their own reports. And when I say add their own reports, I really mean just by clicking these buttons here, right? The
Yeah.
reports that you as the admin created. Now, like you said, I also don't envision a coach like clicking on this reports button at all. The only thing I envision a coach doing is kind of going to this homepage, right? And clicking into one of these reports. And that's
Gotcha.
a
So I, as an admin, I can make the reports available to myself essentially if I wanted to, and create this report for the coaches, save it, and either set it up to send to the coach all the time or share it
right.
with them. Or okay,
Right.
gotcha.
It just the reason why we kind of give that flexibility is more of like, well, maybe I get that a coach might not, click on this reports button and add his own reports. You'll probably do that for him, but maybe he'll be like, well, this is great, but I want to see this data for a different season, for example. Well, I do envision them having the ability to go here and saying, I want this data
Yeah,
now for 2015 season. So they do have some power there. But then again, and listen, different teams, different users. Maybe you'll have coaches that are like, no, well, let me create my own dashboard. I don't think there's many of them, but there can be. You have the
yeah,
complete flexibility of controlling who does what. We don't want to limit you to anything.
yeah. That makes sense.
You know? The one last thing I'll show before kind of pausing for questions is, although we are a data visualization platform and we're agnostic or abstract, if you will, to the type of data, Because we started off with sports, right? We wanted to incorporate a lot of, or a handful of sports-specific features other than just the athlete management system. And one of the big features that we've incorporated is something called multimedia integration. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that, right? It's kind of cool. I personally like it. So if I go to dashboards, and I'll go to something like team dashboards. Let's build a brand new dashboard together, something that we like to call a search, where I just want to search for athletes. So I'm going to click on new, and I want to create a new search. So you're looking at this report right here, and you may be thinking, what's the big deal? This is just a bunch of quarterbacks and kind of their stats. Well, it's a bit more than that. You give the end user some power. Here's the power that I'm referring to. A, they can kind of move columns around. Nothing too crazy there, but they could kind of create their own layout. B, I think these stats are kind of too high level for me. If you look at the breadcrumb area right here, right, you'll notice the stats are on the quarterbacks for the 2015 season. But you know what? I only care about stats aggregated down to, say, third down and the red zone. Okay. So let me click on refine, right? So this is where all our filters are. Okay. And here's a bunch of filters that the administrator made available to me to fool around with. So I'll click on
so you could have as many or as little as you wanted to show for the people to manipulate, essentially.
Correct, right? And I'm gonna say, oh, I just care about third down. Let me apply, right? And now things are gonna get refreshed and re-aggregated for third down. And I care about a red zone, which is the absolute yard line, the 80 to 100-yard line. So now that I did this, right? In theory, I can just click it the same way how I was saving kind of like a layout of the dashboard is the same way how I can save this search, right? I click on save and call this Adam's favorite, third down analysis dashboard, right? So this way, I'll never have to do this report ever again. Like I have it. I don't want to. I hate.
So every time that I go into this dashboard, then it will show me third down in the red zone for all the quarterbacks, and I won't have to touch anything. And then let's say that next week happens, another game happens, then all the data is updated to include that information.
Precisely correct. Yeah. And that's kind of it's kind of dynamic and goes back and forth. So I kind of started over there, but where I wanted to go is that multimedia integration feature that I was referring to. So I'm going to sort this for a second by touchdowns. Okay. And stats don't necessarily tell you the whole story from a coaching point of view. Sometimes you want to see the actual video or the action behind those stats for you to truly get a holistic view, right? Or a more accurate view for that matter. So when I mentioned multimedia integration, I meant that if you have video tied to your data, and I'll elaborate further on how certain teams have this, right? Then you can get straight to that video from the report. So as an example, right, and this is all a demo site, of course, but Tom Brady, say, had 9 touchdowns in the 2015 regular season on third down red zone. Well, if I have the video behind the scenes tagged to this, I could click into the 9 and watch the video.
Shotgun. Brady. Good hands. James White.
Nice. I'm a Patriots fan, so I love seeing that. So thanks for showing me.
Yeah. But my point being there is I say it's a multimedia integration, but like it doesn't necessarily just have to be videos. It could be images. It could be whatever.
So I noticed, so you clicked on the passing touchdowns, right? And that had all of Tom Brady's passing touchdowns. But in the same report, like if you clicked on the passing interceptions, if you had video for that, could that also show the interceptions?
Completely, yeah. From a demo, yeah, 100%, right? This could be 2. I mean, we don't have it here in this particular demo, but yes. If you have data tied to it, it can all be customized. Yeah, and that's another data storing telling experience of our platform.
Well, this is kind of a weird question. But I'm just thinking about it because of the times we're in right now with quarantining or self-quarantining and coronavirus and stuff. Like, I get that we can see visuals of the multimedia or videos, but like, what if I sent out all these programs to athletes that I'm not with, and I could create a questionnaire and send them questions, but can I send them a questionnaire that essentially asks them to take a video of themselves and attach it of them performing like an exercise, and then I can store that data and look at it in a visual of sorts? Is that something that's possible?
1000%. Yes. So completely with you on that. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go really quick here. So remember when this was our area where we created questions and we created that "How are you" type of question, right? Now I'm going to create another question for a minute, okay? And I'm going to say upload video, right, as an example. And I mentioned earlier how we have different question types. Now, the question types that most are familiar with would be something like, like a number or a drop down or a multi-select drop down, etc. But other than that, we also have a file upload, right? And what that does, I gotta refresh this for a second, but what pretty much that does is it enables you to upload files, right? So I'll do this again, upload, you know, so I do some to this effect and I choose file upload. Okay. What that happens, and let me just make this the first question so that this we don't have to, go over it. If I go back and go to our wellness. There we go. So I choose a guy and I could just upload any file I want and it'll be uploaded to the system.
Whoa, yeah. Okay. That's that's pretty cool, yeah.
And then off of that to us behind the scenes is kind of like a metric or a field that's in our database. And we have various report visuals. And we didn't speak much because I could go on and on hours, as you can tell, talking, but we didn't speak so much about the types of visualizations we had. I mean, I showed some basic stuff, but we pretty much have the most kind of popular report visuals, your bar pie line charts, right? The more advanced ones, scorecards and more sports specific features, as well as we even consider a visual to be a media player. That's a visual to us, right? Or a PDF viewer, that's a visual to us as well. And you can choose, I want this upload exercise from today to be something displayed. I have to show that a bit more in detail, but bottom line is you're not just collecting data, you're collecting video, because video or images, that's data to us. It's just a different format.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. That's really cool.
Yeah. I want to know if there's anything else I show in particular, but to get more kind of on the athlete management side of things. So I kind of tried to keep things a bit more abstract, right? Just to show off, like, hey guys, data is data is data. We have data collection on athletes, right, and data visualizations. But kind of back to kind of our boilerplate, athlete management system demo. Let's take data such as say wellness information, right? And just to show you a couple out of the box stuff, just for fun, like a team wellness dashboard. Let's just see what that looks like, right? Because we've been showing more kind of player stuff or player comparison, but this is kind of cool, right? So this is a bunch of metrics that we may be collecting, or you may be collecting for that matter, right here. And you're really controlling, as you can tell here, you're not just showing like a bar or pie chart or whatever, but you're creating an experience for your end user to interact with information. Yeah. For example, you have your kind of filters here, which is showing me, for the last week or two of January, I'm looking at I could easily modify what I want, right? So this one can have filters. Okay? But now I'm looking at my whole team, by athlete here, right? How they rating on excitement for training? What was their fatigue level, muscle soreness, etc. Now, one of the things that you'll notice here, right? I'm just gonna show off one chart if you will at a time, is you'll notice that the colors here are different. Now we're big on colors, right? Because that's what visualization is, right? It's how you want to see things. Like the whole goal of data visualization, in my humble opinion, is to be able to make not just a data accurate, decision, but also a quicker decision. And in order for me to make a quick decision, I need things in like red. Green is good, red is bad type of deal. So we have the ability where you as the AMS manager could even configure kind of like legends and color coding of things too.
Gotcha.
In this particular case, we said, anything above 7 is green. Anything below 7 is or 7.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to figure out, so at least with this chart, okay, like there, I see two number 8s. One is green and one is gray. So is there a different way that someone might
Oh,
color it?
really good, yeah, because that struck me as well, right? And so we have the ability not just to color code things just in general, like, oh, if it's above 8, then green, etc. But we give you the ability to say, okay, if it's above 8 for a particular type of player, right, based off of maybe his average or his position for that matter, then it should be green. But maybe above 8 for a guy in a different position, it should be gray. Does that make sense? You have like
Yeah. What about like standard deviations or stuff like that?
Yeah, completely with you. So this could be, and perhaps maybe this is what this particular metric is on. So this could be. So we have 3 ways of color coding. One is based on the value itself, like, hey, if the value is between X and Y, then green, yellow, red. Or it could be like, hey, if the value, right, of this is 1 or 2 or whatever standard deviations above or below, again, you get to customize those metrics. This particular athlete's average for, and you can even control the performance comparison range that you're comparing.
Oh, I understand. So the date range is the date range of the data, but the performance comparison range is if like if you're calculating standard deviations or percentage of maximum or something like that, you're choosing the range in which you want the other values to be compared against the value within the date range.
That's correct, because the traditional way people do like standard deviations and stuff like that is like, they're like, oh, I just want to see if he's 1 or 2 or a standard deviation above his average. Well, we always ask the question, well, what is his average? His average for what? Like history? Why not give you the flexibility for you to pick and choose what you want to compare his performance to? Because I want to see how this guy is doing versus last season or past 12 months. I know if I do his average all time, heck, I'll get it from when he was 20 whatever years old. You know what I mean? So you have that flexibility, and that controls things as well. Other visuals here, like this kind of cool. A lot of folks have this kind of word graph type of thing. But when I was showing you kind of those questionnaires earlier, one of the questions that we find teams asking is like, hey, name, give me 3 to 5 words of, hey, how you feeling, right? Like happy, sad, whatever. You pick and choose those options, and we find that coaches maybe sometimes kind of tired of like looking at numbers all day. So we give, here's another way of visualizing, if you will, data without just looking at percentages above or below a certain number. So as you can tell, the whole team in general has mainly been frustrated, apparently. It's not a good devil, right? Within this date range, etc.
That's awesome. That seems directly actionable for me as a coach. If I see that in a morning based on a morning wellness or readiness questionnaire, that I get a sense for how my team is actually feeling without even them stepping in the door yet, and I can adjust my demeanor and how I approach them going into the day. That's pretty cool.
Right. And then the last thing I'll mention here is like for, getting kind of back to our colors for a minute. So it's like you're looking at this guy, he's 8 and he's red. And I'm assuming the next question you're going to ask is, well, why? And that's where the data storytelling experience comes into play, because now if you click into the 8, you get some more details. Maybe I want to see a trend about this over time. Right?
And you customize this. So like you made this chart and you told the platform to say, hey, when I click on that, one of these bars bring me to a bar over time. That's
right. And that's what's really important. It's not automatic for you, right? And we don't want it to be automatic, because maybe you don't want it to go into bar trip. Maybe you don't like this chart.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you want this to be an area or something. It's totally your call. You customize the heck out of that. Actually, I think you were one of the, you mentioned earlier how like, hey, Elvis, can I keep on going? And well, yeah, you can. So if we just went one level of drill down, maybe I want to click further into this, metric, and now I want to go into, maybe I don't have that site here, but I can kind of go into another dashboard. You can keep on going, And as
Gotcha.
you
So
can
that could go to
tell,
like an individual player page, like, oh, this player, something's going on with them, and you could click on it, and then there's a whole new dashboard that has like a player headshot and a bunch of other information about them.
yeah, and exactly. And one of the big things is you'll notice right now it's not really that intimidating either, because I can just kind of click on out and I'm back to normal. I'm back to kind of where I started. If I click out of here,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of that simple here. So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on showing kind of, you know, a bunch of more stuff, but you know, as you can tell, you know, here are dashboards that were built here. Here's like a player readiness dashboard. You know, maybe if
Oh yeah.
you know, we don't have that much data on this particular guy, but you know, if I go back maybe 200 days or some to that effect, right? There we go.
Oh
No,
whoa.
yeah,
Yeah, that
so
changes things a little bit.
the change, yeah. Well, here's the kind of a flexibility, right? So you can be like a house as it, yeah. I think I'd probably choose the huge state range, but you kind of get the picture there, right? So, and you know, here's that body visual here, right?
Yeah.
How he's been doing over time from a soreness point of view, right? And the beautiful thing here is, you know what, let's say, for example, like this dashboard, you're like, whoa, this is way too much stuff. Let me just start removing things. I don't want this here. I don't want that there. I want to move this here to the top, right? Heck, you know, let me move this a little bit over here too, right? And okay, this is my personal dashboard that I want, right? So I'm going to click on save. I'm going to save it as new, right? We call this Elvis, you know, save dashboard. And now I didn't overwrite whoever like originally created that dashboard. But now this is my look and feel of the dashboard. This is kind of what I see, etc. Right. So now if I kind of go back to my player area, right, Elvis Fave dashboard is right there, and I didn't overwrite that player readiness one.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, and that's why I was kind of mentioning earlier how these thumbnails could be a bit overwhelming, because you see how easy it is for you to kind of save things, right? So you can save quite a few, and that's why like I might just add this to my favorites or something, you know, because that's the one I care about. Now it's kind of there.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, no, this is unreal. I'm kind of blown away by it.
Yeah.
Are there any other cool like visuals that aren't intuitive, that you don't really see that often, that you think
Yeah.
interesting?
You know, it's funny, Adam. You know, we have so many, so you know, but yeah. So I kind of just to kind of think out of the box, like, you know, this one kind of right here is just another way of visualizing information, where you kind of have like these player cards, where speaking of going into an athlete's dashboard, like I can just kind of click into this guy and go to, actually I have a bunch of dashboards, right? So I can actually pick and choose the dashboard that I want to drill down into, right? So it's even kind of like that level of customization, right?
Yeah.
So let me kind of go to full screen here to show you what I mean. So I can pick and choose the metrics I want on the player card. And you'll notice something here, like this is a data visualization, but as you can tell, it's not a data visualization from a ball pie line chart type of thing. It's a card visualization or a KPI card, you know, where you pick and choose, you know, the metrics you want to show here. Like I'm showing wellness, sleep, RPE, etc. Right? Maybe I decide to color code the whole background of the guy based off of some logic. Maybe I chose, etc. And at this point, I can say, well, I want to click into this guy who's red. And as you saw earlier, I have quite a few dashboards created, right? Elvis, Fade, BB, etc. And I can pick and choose the dashboard I want to look into when I go into that guy. Maybe I want to look into that player readiness view, you know, I guess,
Gotcha.
etc. So that
Makes
kind
sense. So, I guess like there's a lot of cool stuff here. But what if I'm just like, there is a lot of stuff, right? You can do a lot of stuff with data. And what if there's a lot to look at every day, and I don't really want to look at anything unless I have to, unless something stands out. Is there a way like for me to just get, I guess, alerted like when something is out of the norm, and then I know what to check out and when to check it out, instead of looking through all this stuff all the time?
Oh yeah, yeah. So right. So that's actually something fairly new that we created. We created the concept of alerts, right? I'm glad that you bring that up, right? So if I kind of go back to kind of my homepage here or go to something, say daily alerts. Okay. So kind of just gotta find some data here for a minute here. I gotta make sure that this is my site that has it. So we had the concept of, you putting in, again, behind the scenes as an admin, the ability to say, hey, if the guy's, metric, let's say RPE or whatever, right? Or in this case, something like a readiness score, right? If that's above or below 1.5 standard deviations of his average, just give me a report that I know what guys I got to check out, right? So we have the ability to alerts, and you customize these alerts. So it's kind of like out of the box, like that we have here, but it's pretty much showing, hey, these two guys on this day, they're like, they came up with an alert because his readiness score, which is a calculated metric, right, is 26, which is 1.5 standard deviations below his average. What was his average? His average was 30.3 for the date range in question that we're looking at.
Whoa.
We're comparing the ends.
So I could have I could have, maybe these are readiness scores, but I could have like rating of perceived exertion or RPE alerts, or maybe like GPS alerts, and even statistics like performance alerts. And so I'd
Exactly.
just be notified about people that are either going above or below thresholds that I consider relevant, and be notified of that.
That's
Um,
precisely it.
and
Yeah, like
could I have this on my homepage? Is that
yeah,
like something?
100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, the homepage. So speaking of which, so if we kind of go back here, and so we spoke about the kind of favorites area here, and kind of dashboards is more advanced to drill down into things. But then you'll notice here, right, that there is this is a homepage, right? I just happen to choose this as mine, but now I'll click on Elvis, right, and I'll go to settings and then say, you know what, I want my homepage to be, I can pick and choose the homepage that I want, so I can go to alerts, right, and that could be my homepage. And this is
Oh, gotcha.
right. So each individual user could pick and choose what their homepage is.
Okay.
I just
And,
have
and and the admin could set it up. Like if the admin knows the coaches want certain things and the players want other things, and the athletic trainer wants something else, they can set up all the home pages, set up everything for everybody, and all they have to worry about is
right.
just
So,
going in if they want.
yeah, exactly. So kind of behind the scenes, and not to get too much into the weeds of that, but in short, this kind of a behind the scenes admin experience, and here's where you can kind of configure favorites for users and stuff like that. Here are my users. Here's their favorites and all that type of thing. So we make even the administrator's life easier too,
Yeah.
right? You know, to kind of like. Because we don't want you to, we want to make the setup process as easy as possible. So yes, we have a lot of like bulk edit type of situations, right? Any coach who's this type of coach should always be templated with this dashboard and these favorites, etc.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is I'm beginning to, well, I understand like why this is pretty powerful and important. Because I know like in my day to day, I get information and I need to look at it, and then I need to interpret it and just disseminate it to a bunch of different people in a bunch of different ways. But essentially, if I know what's important and what's not, I can set all this up ahead of time where everyone is on the same page with all the information that they need to know all the time, which makes my life a lot easier and a lot less convoluted, as a sports scientist at least. So
Yeah, for sure.
interested.
And kind of like I guess the last thing, and I keep on saying the last thing, but the last thing I would mention is that I've shown like a bunch of kind of like robust features, which is really cool. But then again, we help you kind of grow as you grow, because you could start off like super small and say, you know what, let's see how this works with just like 1 or 2 forms. So I can have 1 or 2 dashboards. And then, all right, this is cool. People are getting it, right? Now let me add some more data. Now let me add alerts. Now let me add, perhaps third-party data, whether it's wearable devices, other brand, equipment that you may have in the gym and whatnot. Keep it.
Yeah.
Don't go full head in. You can start off slow.
Yeah. I actually had a question about that, before we end this thing. Like, so you just talked about like wearables and stuff like that. How does the data, like, I know that this is like, when we go back to the beginning of this is holding all the data that is relevant to you or your organization in one place.
Yeah.
So how do you get that information? Like, I know that I can input things like directly into Rock Daisy, like you showed me, by creating forms, and maybe I send them out. Other people input information too. But how, those
Yeah.
still seems like I have to go to a bunch of different spots to get, like, for example, if I use like force plates, or if I used heart rate monitors or things like that, I don't understand how it's all connected.
Sure. So I can tell you a little bit about that. First of all, the most basic thing that I didn't show off is kind of like, managing players, which is really simple. Just, okay, here's where you go to create a new guy, your first name, last name, that kind of stuff. Super simple. Probably not even worth it from a demo point of view. But what I was showing earlier was the ability for you to create your own kind of forms, right? Whether it's a wellness form, a weigh-in, RP, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like you mentioned, you may have data in 20 other spots, like you said, force plates, GPS wearable devices, et cetera. Now, luckily, most of these other sources, nowadays they have APIs, right? Which in short gives us the ability as developers to integrate with their system. So they give you some called like an API key, right? That your team ABC, and you tell Rock Daisy what your API key is for that particular vendor, and we automatically sync their data into one spot, right? So we currently integrate with quite a few force pitch providers, right? GPS wearable devices, et cetera. And we're always adding more APIs because that's kind of the goal. And the worst case scenario, one of the other cool things is, let's say you're working with a vendor that for whatever reason doesn't have an API, or maybe they do, yet Rock Daisy did not integrate with them due to popularity or whatever. We have the ability for you to even upload data via like raw Excel. You don't even have to use our web forms or anything to that effect. You have kind of like an Excel upload section here where we kind of map your athlete names to the athlete names that you put into the system and stuff like that.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Trying to think if I have any other questions.
Sure.
No, it all kind of makes sense to me.
Awesome.
Mm.
Glad we had the time here.
Yeah, no, thanks for taking the time. This is pretty crazy. So
Awesome.
yeah, I'm wrapping my head around it. Cool. So if people have questions for you, I guess where can they go to contact you or find you?
Well, luckily I have a name that you can't forget, so that's Elvis, right? I'd recommend just emailing info@rockdaisy.com if they have any questions, and I'll probably usually get that email. So.
All right, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Elvis. I really appreciate it. This is really cool.
Sounds good. Take care, Adam.
All right, you too.